Wonderful stuff. If you'd like to ring us, it's 0491 65 68 60. Dr. John Bruni from Sage International. Just arrived, pulled up a chair, tea's on the way. Or coffee. Which are you having?
Oh, I'm having coffee. Oh, I'm a coffee boy.
And there are biscuits there. You can have Anzac biscuits or the chocolate ones.
Okay, well, I'll bide my time on those. But
well, yeah. John, here we are, another week, and we're still not really at war, are we?
Well, I mean, no. I suppose it depends on what you define as war. Look, the Americans have been supplying the Israelis satellite intelligence, absolutely for sure, and other quiet logistic on the side, because, I mean, Israel and Iran are not next door neighbors. There's about 1,000 kilometers between the two countries. Yeah. So it makes sense that America would supply Israel what it would require to make, effective strikes so far away from Israeli territory.
Yeah. It's funny, you load the bullets and you get somebody else to fire them.
Yeah. And don't forget the American warships that are also in the Eastern Mediterranean and streaming toward the Gulf as we speak. That are
it's a major carrier group, is it?
Yeah, major carrier group. I think they'll have two in the region. I mean, one of which would probably be destined to shoot down missiles, those few missiles that the Iranians can still let off. And then in the Eastern Mediterranean, I think you've got a couple of Aegis-class destroyers that have those anti-ballistic missile capabilities as well, and they have already been in action in and around Israel. Yeah.
I often wondered with the Iraq war, I wondered, the West was saying that he had weapons of mass destruction. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, no, I don't. Mm-hmm. Now, all he had to do was say, listen, don't bomb us, don't go to war with us, come in and have a good look, satisfy yourselves that we do not have weapons of mass destruction. But he didn't. And ultimately there was a war, and no weapons of mass destruction were ever found.
Yes.
Now, why would these people? Why wouldn't the Ayatollah simply say, "Look, we don't want to be bombed. Mm-hmm. We don't want to go to war. Man of God, he is. Man of peace." They keep telling me that Islam is a religion of peace.
Yes, but that religion of peace has also been preaching the destruction of Israel as well. So there is a bit of a dichotomy in where we're going with all of this.
Why is it that they want to destroy Israel?
Look, this is a very long and complex narrative that goes back as far as the creation
Crusades.
As far as the creation of Israel in the modern context, but certainly it goes back to the Crusades and beyond, because there's always been a nub of anti-Semitism among Muslims in the region of the Middle East. So this is a historical issue that we can't really easily walk away from, right? Yeah. Now, would a regime change in Iran solve the problem? Well, here's the thing. Regime change is never really a great instrument. It's a blunt instrument, and you really have to have some confidence that the people who are going to be taking the reins of power after the offending regime are going to be nice, friendly, and peaceful. Now, the one thing that we do know about the Iranians from a cultural perspective is that they're very proud being Iranian. Now, you've noticed the weird kind of dichotomy going on within and among Iranians inside Iran. They hate their regime. There's no love between the people and the leaders of the country. There's no love there. However, the leaders of the country have this thing called the Basij. They are internal security forces, and they have rooted out whatever organized resistance there is to the regime. So if you take out the Ayatollahs, there is effectively nothing but a public rabble, and a rabble that will not know how to organize a proper opposition. The only likely outcome of that is that someone from the military will take over. But someone from the military taking over, if we go by the Third World playbook, will be nationalistic, will also be anti-Israeli, and will probably try to reconstitute a nuclear weapons program after the war has been settled. So I'm not so sure whether we're looking at, peace in our time using Israeli force, or, dare I say, even American force on top of that. I think there's going to be a lot of death and destruction. The nuclear program in Iran will get a huge setback. But will Iranians give up on the idea of ever being a nuclear power? You've got to understand that Iran is a big country.
What is it, about 80 million people?
No, higher than that, 90 million. And
90 million.
Many of them are extraordinarily clever. You know, they've got a real knack for STEM and engineering and stuff. I mean, things that we ought to be, manning up to, but we just don't. And because of the youth of the population, their capacity to bounce back, I'm very confident that they'll bounce back very quick, far quicker than we can expect from them, right?
But we don't want to create a vacuum into which anything can rush.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the only thing that I can warn the Israelis against is the regime change element, because a weak Ayatollah regime, it gives the Iranian people something to play with, and maybe they can mollify and modify the regime to be more liberal over time, but taking the regime out completely will likely break up Iran in a series of squabbling statelets, very much like Syria was under Bashar al-Assad, only a much larger, more bloody mess.
In Iran, was life so bad under the Shah?
I'm glad you asked that question, because most people don't know, and you have to ask Iranians from that period of time. Now, I was lucky enough, when I was doing my PhD at Adfer, my best mate was an Iranian. He was an electrical engineer. Most of his family had fled when the Shah fell, so they ended up in the Silicon Valley area of the US and was doing quite nice in California somewhere. But anyway, he told me that the Shah Reza Pahlavi, he had this expansive plan on modernizing Iran. Now, when you look at Iran, everyone looks at countries as if they're monolithic blocks led by one or two people. It's a far more complicated story. And Iran is very complicated by the fact that when you say Persian, what do you actually mean? Are they Azeri? They're not Sunni, they're Shiite. There are a lot of complex competing interests within Iran. But nonetheless, the Shah, when he embarked upon modernization, he was doing all sorts of crazy stuff that people don't understand. And also the Shah had the Savak. Now, the Savak was his internal security forces, and whenever the Shah didn't get what he wanted, the internal security forces would go knocking on people's doors at 3 o'clock in the morning and take them out for some summary torture, if not execution. So, we have to get in our mindset that the Pahlavi dynasty was not the fun-loving, cuddly kind of variety of autocrat. He was still an autocrat. And then he was replaced by the Ayatollah's theocracy, which is also an autocracy.
Why was it called the Peacock Throne?
Yes, and that has something to do with the sigils that were surrounding the Iranian monarchy at the time, and the peacock is a very prized,
colourful
symbol.
Yeah. Well, so you've got a dilemma, haven't you? Stephen?
Yes.
Tell me, I believe that the Ayatollah is quite good friends with Putin, and that they've known each other for 25 years.
Yes.
How does that play out into this whole scenario?
Yes. Well, Stephen, I can say quite frankly that Putin is far too busy with Ukraine. That he will not be able to afford to give this sort of support that, in an ideal sense, he would like to. But even if we played a counterfactual, a historic counterfactual, Putin is only interested in Putin and Russia and his role in Russia. Iran has always been a sort of weird frenemy kind of situation, kind of like China, for instance. China is neither friend nor foe, and they will cooperate when they need to. But when when they have competing interests, they will break apart. So when we see China, Russia, and Iran, we have to get into our heads that this isn't a tight alliance. This is not ANZUS Mark II. This is a real loose confederation of competing autocrats that only have one thing in common, and that is to stand up against the United States. But that does not mean that they have their military forces embedded with each other. It's not like the American alliance. We tend to think alliances like, it's got to be like the Americans. They're powerful and strong, so we've got to be scared of them. We don't have to be scared of them, because basically if you touch them, they'd all fall apart and scatter into their own respective groups. Putin has a problem with Ukraine. Putin has nothing to give Iran. And and with regard to Iran having given Shahed drones, at least half of their productive Shahed drones have been going off to the Russians to fight the Ukraine war, which means that their Shahed drone production is down, and so they have very little left over to, send off to the Israelis. But, I mean, the Israelis have been doing quite good work in shooting them down anyway, so,
How come Putin can get away with putting Russia first, and nobody seems to be scathing about that, and yet people are horrified that Trump is putting America first, and I think we should be putting Australia first.
Yeah, well, I suppose context has a lot to do with it. If you're a dictator and you put your own country first, what does that mean exactly? You're not putting your country first, you're putting yourself, your family, and everyone, your close supportive circle first in your country, and then you say, well, we're all Russians and I'm putting Russia first. I mean, if you look at Trump and you look at the way that he's kind of got his little, cohort of people around him, all of them are, yes, men and women. There is no adult in the room. No one wants to speak truth to power in the United States context. That's not something to be celebrated because it seems, superficially at least, it seems that Trump is wanting to imitate the autocratic playbook in that score. So he says America first, but what does he actually mean? He means Trump first, Trump companies first. Look how much money this guy has actually fleeced out of America since he's become president of the United States. I mean, his
Bitcoin thing?
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. His nationalism is so facile. He uses it, absolutely. And those poor people who are caught up in his drama all believe every single word that comes out of his mouth. But, no, it's not good.
No, but it's very strange. He doesn't seem to want to go to war. He says, I'm a man of peace. I'd rather negotiate. I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Well, we know what he's up to.
What?
We spoke about it this morning. The guy's lining himself up for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Of course. He is, absolutely, Gary. You've got it nailed, absolutely nailed.
He's so superficial in the way he's going about it. He's covering his rear end all the time by flip-flopping with decision-making because he really wants that badge. He was absolutely seething when Obama got one.
And look, going back and being absolutely fair about this, Obama got one for doing nothing.
That's true.
So Trump, in Trump's mentality, he's saying, well, if Obama gets one for nothing, I can get one for
doing something.
Well, I mean,
Taco.
Yes, for being taco. Yeah, I mean, it's a strange world we're living in.
You've got to see the comedy in this. I know it's a very serious thing, but at the same time, it is a melodrama.
It is. It's like one of those reality TV shows that the current US president used to be ahead of.
That's his expertise.
That is his expertise. So, I mean, again, like we were talking earlier about the fact that, it's on again, it's off again, it's on 2 days, it's on 2 weeks. It sounds like this guy is so unsure of what he's doing. Now, but then if you take the other option, which of course all the MAGA supporters say he's a 10-dimensional chess move player and all this kind of rubbish. He's a clown, of course he is. I mean, I always go to Occam's razor.
The simplest.
Yes.
Let's really get nasty.
Yeah, all right. Well,
he speaks very highly of us.
Did you say baboon or buffoon?
No, he speaks very highly of Jeremy Cordeaux.
Well, I would like to know.
He's probably trying to sell Jeremy a Tesla.
Well,
he won't.
He won't. He's got a second-hand one to go. I know, but no, I'm not in the market.
No mileage, Jeremy.
Yeah,
no mileage at all. Why doesn't he shut up? He must be the most vocal, most heard, most interviewed, most visible, most high-profile president they've had forever.
His ego has no boundary.
Is it ego? He sucks the oxygen out of the room wherever he goes, and it's all part of the drama that people apparently love. They love the idea of having a president that is the front page story every day. I mean,
I think that's American culture more than perhaps the rest of the world.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think it's only a percentage of the Americans that tolerate it because, I mean, even the late-night comedians, I mean, if you bother watching most of them, I think they're sick of it as well.
Cordeaux is just hilarious.
Yeah.
Stephen Colbert. Why doesn't he get sued for the things he says?
Well, why don't you?
Well, I'm mild compared to
Mum's the word,
Stephen
Jeremy.
Colbert, or whatever his name is.
Corbett. It's Corbett.
Yeah.
We'd say Corbett, mate. Corbett if you're a New Yorker.
By the way, what do you get if you get a Nobel Prize? You get a gong and you get some money, $1 million.
Trump would be only interested in the money.
Hasn't he got enough?
No.
A seat in the Adelaide Club?
Jeremy, enough money is never enough. It's like he wants the money. He's making money hand over fist. The only thing that motivates him as soon as he gets out of bed is what will Jared and Ivanka do in order to make the Trump holdings grow a little bit further. I mean, he's doing his own bit to ensure that, the money does still come in. So that money that he gets from a Nobel Peace Prize, that's the number one thing that he's after. And the prize itself will be a doorstop in Mar-a-Lago somewhere.
Jeremy's got lots of them.
What is it? Is it $1 million you get for?
I don't know. I'm not lining up for one.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount by Trump standards, but it's significant for normal people.
Why don't the Americans do what I believe they do here? I think they insisted that when Turnbull became Prime Minister, that he set up a trust, and everything that he had to be put at arm's length from him as he sat in a position of power. As the head of state, head of government.
Yes.
Now, why don't the Americans do the same thing? Wouldn't it be more sensible?
No, it's far too intellectual for them.
The Americans actually have a very strange system. They go by trust, right? So they think that...
Okay. Is that a trick question?
That's worked well.
No. Well, if you look at, say...
Who's looking after the trust, Putin?
Yes, exactly right. If you look at the presidents from Ulysses S. Grant till... the early 1900s, what is it, Teddy Roosevelt, that period of time known as the Gilded Age, US presidents after Ulysses S. Grant were pretty much like Trump. They went into office with the idea of taking what they can get for themselves. So, Trump isn't an original American president. We make a big deal about him because every day he's on the news,
Nothing original about Trump.
Nothing original about him. He's taking it out of the 1880 playbook, basically.
I'm sure you would have read his book, The Art of the Deal.
No, I've got better things to do with my time, I'm sorry.
All right, I can summarise it for you.
You and Tony are on the same
I can summarise it for you in less than 25 words.
Okay.
Well, A, he probably didn't write it, was ghostwritten.
Yes.
And B, every single thing he does is in that book.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yep, very bigly.
And he's so predictable. I can't believe that the public still gives him even credibility on 1 to 100. I can't believe they even give him at least 10.
But this is the man who's got the button. This is the man who can launch the Third World War.
And he's got his army of true believers. If I had $1 for every time I've been attacked by the MAGA base in the United States for anything that I've said, and again, what I find so offensive about everything is that MAGA and extreme nationalism now is taken over from the sensible right. I come from the sensible right and people are calling me communist and Marxist. I mean, if I could teleport myself to the original point, I'd give them all a good slapping and show them just how a conservative would act. Because I find it offensive that now the politics that I grew up with is completely and utter irrelevant. You're either a MAGA or ultra-nationalist, or you're a Sleepy Joe communist on the other side of the equation. And I think that is just ridiculous. I believe in a broad spectrum of, politics.
I agree entirely. I wrote a book once, and one of the opening lines in my book was, as I've bounced down the corridor of life from side to side, why don't we just try and take a middle road and take everyone into account and all settle down, have a Bex and move forward?
Yep, I agree with that. Absolutely. But we won't see that, sadly. The MAGA base will go down screaming. It's interesting to see how this Iran war has divided MAGA. It shows just how superficial the ties between the president and his base actually are. Because now Trump is running around saying, I'll be the one that's going to make the decision as to who's going to be doing what. The journalists want to know exactly what time I'm going to be dropping the bombs. And it's like, well...
That's a very good impression. We should get you an orange wig.
I just need to have a pack of Cheetos and cover my face and I'll be right. No. Yeah, I'll be a nice bright orange.
You even had the lips right then.
Thanks for that.
All those missiles that Iran... all the missiles that Iran has, Where did they come from? Are they Russian?
No, they're actually a minestrone of different parts. I mean, you've got the North Koreans who had a hand in the missile program. Some of the Pakistanis had some, gave the Iranians assistance over the years. The Russians did for sure, but most of the ballistic missiles that have been fired toward Israel have been of Iranian origin. They do have the capacity to build missiles. The thing is that the Israelis now have taken a lot of that off the table. The most important asset that the Iranians had were mobile missile launchers. Now, you might recall back in 1991, during the first Gulf War against Saddam Hussein, everyone was making a big deal about how difficult it was to track these mobile missile launchers because we didn't have back then the sort of perfect intelligence that we have today. So technology has now moved in such a way that it's still a tricky target, because satellites move around the world. They don't stay in a stationary orbit per se. So therefore, when you get the information, you're getting in near real time. But the Americans can put so many things up there, satellites, drones, and whatever. And the Israelis are great on human intelligence. They've got people on the ground that actually set up drones in Iran to take out known missile launching sites. That even if the Iranians had 50,000 missiles, if you take out their launchers, they've got nothing to launch those missiles against. So therefore, you degrade Iran's ballistic missile capability.
Okay, so God knows how many more missiles they've got in their arsenal. They couldn't have very many. I heard that they started out with 3,000 or something like that, but they're firing them all the time, so they will run low.
Well, their firing rates at the moment seem pretty low. Now, they're one of two reasons that people are giving. Some people are saying, some people are saying that the Iranians now have let off, an orgasmic splatter of missiles all over Israel. But what's going to happen is that now they're keeping their powder dry in case the Americans come in, and then they're keeping much of their missile capacity back because once the Americans start coming in, they will attack American bases throughout the Middle East. Now, I mean, it's possible that that's the case, but I also think that it's also more likely that the Israelis have taken out so many launchers that even if that were the end point, I don't think the Iranians will be able to have that capacity. Yeah.
Well, so they'd have to win the war eventually. The Israelis will wear them down. They'll either run out of ammunition or they'll run out of launchers, public support or launchers or something. So maybe they just don't need the bunker-busting bomb.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good point you raise. Look, the Israelis are very... in terms of war, the Israelis are number one, right? They are adaptable. If they see a problem, they'll do a workaround. And one of those workarounds could be that they don't really need the Americans to go after the centrifuges in the Fordow reactor. Now, if that's the case, we may see something quite spectacular from the Israelis over the next couple of days, and that will let Trump off the hook. He won't have to get involved because it's like, well, the Israelis did it. It's all on Israel now.
Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons why he's leaving it for 2 weeks, just to see how much the Israelis can do?
He's got a golf tournament.
Yeah.
You're such a cynic.
Yes, I think he's got a golf tournament.
Melania wants to go shopping.
So how do you think it's going to pan out? How is it going to end? What's the likely scenario?
I think there's going to be a period of absolute chaos. Everything depends on Trump now. I mean, the ball is truly in Trump's court. And if he does intervene, it could spark a civil war within MAGA, because MAGA voted for Trump primarily on the idea that Trump is going to be true to his words on not getting America involved in foreign entanglements and foreign wars. That was one of the key policy planks. Now, if Trump decides to reverse that...
You could get a gong for that.
Well, yeah, but you're going to get people like Tucker Carlson, and, he sends a shiver up my spine, but he's a very good communicator nonetheless, and you don't want to have him against you. And then I think that you'll start seeing the whole Trump experiment fall apart, because if the MAGA base fractures... if the MAGA base does fracture, you'll end up having a civil war within MAGA, and then who takes over afterwards? Trump becomes a lame-duck president. The the Democrats are almost guaranteed a Republican wipeout at the next November at the midterms. So, there are a lot of things in play at the moment, and Trump, for all his 10-dimensional thinking, has to protect his base. He's got to support Israel. And the Iranians, well, his unpredictability is enough to cause whoever's left in Iran to scratch their heads and wonder what the hell the Americans are going to be doing. Mm-hmm. So again, that binds the Iranian commanders to a certain degree, because they don't know if the Americans are going to come in. And if they are harboring missiles and launches for the great battle with the great Satan, that's going to keep everything back for a while, and it'll give Israel a reprieve to continue bombing targets in Iran. So,
This could make a fantastic stage show.
A reality TV show.
Springtime for...
Final curtain could just be a big bang.
Yeah. Mushroom cloud hanging over somewhere. Yeah.
And in amongst all of this, there's this AUKUS deal, which is being reviewed by somebody who doesn't really like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, AUKUS was always a bit of a boondoggle for those people involved in getting new boats. And like with most big defence projects, it's not long before a political decision is made, then all of a sudden the money gets funneled to other people to create the structure. Whether the structure succeeds or fails, there'll be many people who will be getting their cut of public funding. And then even if everything goes backside up, those people go away. They
big boys' toys.
Well, I mean, I would have liked to have thought that it wasn't, but yes, I mean...
we would all like to think it wasn't. I have some solutions to these problems, and this today is not time for it, but I would be more than happy to extrapolate at a later time. We could solve the whole problem, save trillions and trillions of dollars with two simple things. I'll talk about it later. Listeners, listen in.
I saw a picture the other day of a Virginia-class submarine up against or beside is it SS AUKUS, the British one?
Yeah.
The AUKUS submarine was huge by comparison to the Virginia.
Yes, that's right. And
it's only a drawing now.
That begs the question, though, Jeremy, do we have the people necessary to actually crew these boats if they were to actually magically appear at the end of, Techport out at Osborne?
Is there anybody in defence who sort of asks that question?
Oh, look, I'm sure people are asking the question. I'm just not sure whether or not they're going to be getting this sort of responses, or giving the responses that are necessary. So, look, it's great to dream about having these, ginormous submarines. I would say give up on that, go back to the Japanese cap in hand and get the best of their technology and make sure that it's built out of Adelaide. That's really as simple as it can get.
Well, I remember we had that discussion at the convention centre.
Correct.
And it was just people couldn't make a decision.
No, that's right. Well, at that time, Jeremy, that was back in 2015, at the time of the competitive evaluation process, the CEP. We had the Germans, the French, and the Japanese all contending and competing for the Collins class replacement program. And I remember looking at the French bid, and of course the French didn't send very senior representatives across to our conference. But the thing is that the boats that the French put together looked interesting, but again they were trying to retrofit a nuclear submarine for a conventional navy, which the Australian Navy is all about. Now, if they wanted to return them into nuclear submarines, it would have just been a matter of taking out one engine and putting in another, because it was all modular. It was an easy way to do it. And then, we've got Ian here, so Ian will talk about low enrichment versus high enrichment in terms of uranium. But
Professor Plimer, how are you?
Upright.
Good boy. Wearing your USA... no, it's Texas.
Texas Longhorns.
That's a different country.
It is. It is. I know. I've heard that. So what... why suddenly, then, did we have a situation where we wanted conventional submarines and then suddenly we were going to have atomic submarines?
I think everything really revolved around Morrison and, the shadow discussions he was having with people that no one really knew about until all of a sudden we had AUKUS. I mean, I know I was blindsided because I was actually working on a strategic plan with my colleagues for another trilateral alliance, which would have been Japan, Britain and Australia, and we were getting published on that.
Can you stay for a while?
Yep, sure.